Hedi, back to House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. We are continuing our conversation about the Building Energy Code Working Group. I'm Rep. Kathleen James from Manchester.
Chris Morrow, Windsor, Bennington.
Richard Bailey, Lamar 2.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Tara Torrey, Washington 2.
Graham Kleffner, Chittenden 13, Burlington.
Great, and in the room.
Hi, I'm Sarah Mearhoff. I'm with the Associated General Contractors.
Andrew Brewer with DRM on behalf of the home builders and architects.
All righty.
And I'm Scott Campbell, representative and also chair of the Building Energy Code Working Group this year. So this is where we left off, talking about recommendations from the report. Just as a sort of a broad strokes, I want to read a paragraph from the conclusion, which says that as in previous years, there was majority agreement that energy codes are a subset of building codes and ultimately should be administered consistently, as well as recognition that Vermont's current housing crisis and high cost of construction makes movement in that direction difficult. And therefore, as in the past, there was disagreement on how and when Vermont can achieve that goal. But the widest agreement was that the overall goal of increasing energy code compliance, perhaps even more than energy efficiency, is deeper engagement with education and training to improve the quality, durability, safety, health, and comfort of Vermont buildings. So just the overall sense of the group. Let's see. So previous recommendations included a lot of the same things, moving enforcement and authority having jurisdiction for energy codes to Division of Fire Safety, having a role for the energy efficiency utilities, that is EVT, BED, and VGS, in assisting with code compliance by providing incentives and also perhaps expertise, even staffing. And there was also agreement that using some RGGI money for doing that in this last year's working group would be a good idea.
And Scott, sorry, you said 400K as an annual.
No, just a one time.
Oh, okay.
A one time. Previous groups had agreed on adopting residential building code as an important recommendation. This year, there was a slight vote against that. I'll talk about it on the next slide. There was also support for setting up some sort of advisory group or task force or something to support Division of Fire Safety in the transition to enforcing or administering at least energy codes and assisting in this year's case, OPR in improving the builder registry, residential contractor registry, and certifications and all of that. That's mentioned on the next line here as well. And then also centralizing where the energy certification compliance certificates are housed. There was wide agreement on that all 3 years. And this year we also talked about expanding and incentivizing training, especially this year we talked about the energy module as something that is already set up actually in statute that is required of licensed professions and trades. And so making that more relevant to those people in those trades, instead of just talking about the statute, again, it's difficult for people to sort of make a connection to. And then clarifying municipal authority. This is, I don't know if I've mentioned this time, but I think I have in the past. Our first year, the legal counsel for the Public Service Department had told us that he questioned anyway whether there is a direct line of authority from the legislature, from the state government to municipalities to be able to administer and enforce energy codes. Some municipalities have taken upon themselves to do so, but again, whether there is authority for them to do that is unclear, according to VSD's council. And there is also an effort this year on the part of Energy Futures Group to work through the Energy Action Network. As you may know, they put together the whatever that thing is called, the
Data report.
the data report, the booklet every year. And they have also a series of what they call action teams to work on various problems. And one of them this year that Energy Futures Group is working on is assisting municipalities that want to set up an enforcement mechanism for energy codes to help them do that and help them set up a consistent system. So there aren't different systems in different municipalities. However, the concern that there might be different systems in different municipalities led a lot of folks, and a majority of folks on the working group this year, not to support that. But talk about that in a second. Right. So these are strategies not recommended. Part of my screen is covered, so I have to look at the paper copy here. So adopting the residential building code was not supported by a narrow vote, 4 in favor, 5 against. And
But the folks who abstained,
those were so this working group included realtors, League of Cities and Towns, other people who are sort of outside of the directly being affected by a decision whether building code should be
okay, so they felt they shouldn't weigh in.
That's right.
Okay.
That was the reason why they abstained. So yes, so the building code issue was mostly concerns expressed by people who voted against it, was that putting into statute a date certain when building codes had to be adopted was the problem they had. DFS and public service, I think they're just, they're representing the administration's view that they don't want to add any more regulation to building. The people who supported having a building construction code believe that we just need to have a standard of care that everyone can refer to. So builders, consumers, but also insurance companies. Also, when there's a dispute that goes to court, courts need some standard to be able to refer to decide whether who's in the right, who should prevail, and when there's a conflict. So their view is that some not just a financial regulation or standard, but also or protection, I guess is a better way of putting it, but also something technical about these are the requirements for doing appropriate construction. Yes, Brandon.
Do you have a point of view on the best sequencing in terms of increasing compliance with the current residential energy code versus creating a residential building code?
I think ultimately that having a building code is a baseline that we should have, a building construction code, and the energy code. I personally would like to see energy code incorporated into the building code, and so therefore there would be an enforcement mechanism in that through that path. On the other hand, recognizing that that's very difficult to do at this time, not only with this administration, but also with concerns about just how much construction costs have gone up in the last few years, and recognizing that you can have all the laws you want, but mostly laws are complied with voluntarily anyway. So looking for mechanisms to increase voluntary compliance is another thing that's worth doing. So the bill that I'm going to present later, I actually haven't even got it back yet, sometime in the next few weeks, I hope, is going to look or try to implement strategies that will increase voluntary compliance. So we're not going to, I think the building code issue probably a 2 or 3 year process by itself. But in the meantime, we can still, and in tandem, we can still implement strategies to increase voluntary compliance, increase compliance voluntarily. I should say.
Yeah. And I'm wondering about with building code, if one were to make it advisory or voluntary, that wouldn't address the concerns people have about adding bureaucratic complexity and adding cost to building and so forth. I mean, we'd have to spend the time and money to develop the code, but at least then it would be there.
Well, there's not very much. Well, there's some money to spend because
But there are
the model code
models, yeah.
would need to be modified somewhat for Vermont's situation. The other codes that we have, the fire code, electric code, the other codes that we have, and the energy code. So there's some expense there, but it's not a huge expense. So I lost my thread. Where were we running this?
I was just asking whether it made sense to adopt it as
As a voluntary.
voluntary.
Yeah, well, there is no actually enforcement of codes on single family housing. There's no sort of mechanism for that.
Yeah.
So adopting a residential building code doesn't mean it'll be enforced. It just means there's a standard of care
Yeah.
to refer to. And it's not necessary to adopt an enforcement mechanism to adopt a code. It just means that the state has a code that applies to single family rentals and duplexes, which currently are technically not covered by a code.
Yeah. Got it. Thank you.
Looks like you have a question. Representative.
But I thought you said in that international code book has an energy code supplement in it.
Yes, and the way I understand it, and I'm not an expert on the code, but the way I understand it is the codes are updated every 3 years, all of the codes, and the previous update of the energy code is incorporated in the current update. That's whatever the current update is of the residential building code.
Is it 2020?
No, it's
2024.
I think it's 2024. 2018, 2021, 2024. I think it's 2024. Yeah.
Well, it looks like it was a close vote.
Yeah, it was a close vote. And on the next item, giving municipalities explicit authority to enforce energy codes was a not as close a vote. There were concerns, I think, mostly about disparate regulations around the state. And the people who were advocating for that authority were not able to convince the other people that actually this would be there already is a disparate sort of system of code enforcement in the municipalities that do enforce energy codes. Burlington, Montpelier, I don't need to know which ones are doing that, but this would be an opportunity if the EAN action team is able to come to agreement on this. This would be an opportunity to standardize how municipalities are enforcing those codes. And also it's the codes, the R-based code is not adapted to each municipality. It's the same, it's a singular code. It's just what are the forms, what are the processes, what are the, how do you do it is what could be standardized and would make it easier for builders around the state, to work in different municipalities around the state. So anyway, we'll see what happens with that. And then using EEU, energy efficiency utility expertise to support energy code compliance. Again, a close vote. I don't really know why people oppose that. I was a little bit puzzled at the time. Continuing to use Vermont energy codes and RVs and CVs. This was a controversial. the architects in particular, but architects and builders both advocated for just using the model codes, the International Energy Code, and with minimal updates. But one of the updates that everybody sort of agreed we really would want is a mechanical ventilation requirement, which is one of the major elements that's in the 2024 version of RDs and not in the 2020 version of RDs, because you need mechanical ventilation. Here we are doing stuffy right now. It's true in almost every house that's built, that we're actually building more airtight houses and better insulated houses. So we really need to ventilate them for people's health. Anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, so on that point,
Mhm.
because of the governor's executive order, does that mean that having mechanical ventilation required would be something that a municipality would do as a stretch code
It's possible.
and should do as a stretch?
That's right. Yeah, and I think it is actually in the 2020 stretch code also, if I remember
Oh, okay.
correctly. So yeah, I mean,
For commercial.
no, for
No,
residential,
so for residential.
yeah. So,
Can you tell us what cost that is? What
Oh.
incremental increase?
I think it's one of the major costs differences between the upgrade between 2020 and 2024, because it's a system probably it's an air handling system, typically in the basement, and then it's got ductwork to several rooms and ductwork outside. So there's, I don't know, $10,000. I don't know.
And it's hard to add later. Right?
Yes, it's hard to add later because it's hard to run ductwork.
Yeah, we've been doing it in our house. It's a challenge.
Yeah,
A lot of closets have been.
yeah, that's right.
Oh,
So how you should converting from a forced hot water system to an air system?
No, just adding ductwork for ventilation.
Well, right.
Yeah. What we did with
If you have an air system with ductwork, then it makes it a little
Right,
bit
but
easier.
if you have a forced hot water.
Yeah.
You've got no headroom down in your
Yeah.
cellar,
Yeah.
and no headroom in
Yeah.
your first floor for the ductwork. But once you've got the ductwork for just capturing the heat exchanger, that's what it is. And, then you could.
So it makes the case that we have the houses a little looser.
Well, no.
yeah,
There's a saying, you want to build it tight and ventilate it right. You'd rather have, the point is, you'd rather have controlled ventilation than uncontrolled ventilation. With a house that breathes, with a house that's leaky, you get too much ventilation in the winter because you have air leaking out the top, air pouring in the bottom, and not enough ventilation, and especially in the shoulder seasons. In the summer, typically people have windows open, but in the shoulder seasons, when you don't want the 50-degree or 45-degree air outside to come inside, then you're shutting the house up, but you don't have enough stack effect. You don't have enough pressure or temperature differential to drive enough ventilation that you would get in the winter when you don't really want all that ventilation, right? So it's much better to control the ventilation than not to control it. That's the reason for mechanical ventilation. But yes, it is, and it is a cost in terms of electricity, and it's also a cost in terms of air, because you're exhausting heated air and bringing in unconditioned air, and that's the reason why an air-to-air heat exchanger or a heat recovery ventilation system is the way to do it, because then you minimize your thermal losses, but you still have electrical costs. Is the question? Yes.
so when people weatherize really effectively an existing home, is there a requirement or a strong recommendation that you get a ventilation system?
Well, going back to my days in the 90s, working in the weatherization assistance program, we always put in bath fans as at least some ventilation. A lot of houses have no ventilation at all, and I think that is still the fallback standard in the weatherization program. At least put in an exhaust fan to drive a little bit of ventilation. But I want to do a time check too. How much time do I have now?
Well,
Until three?
Well, no, is,
Kelly said
All
she
the
only
money you
needs
want. I'd
5.
rather have
Oh,
you keep
right.
going, frankly.
okay. Is Kelly coming?
She's in the Zoom. She said she only needs 5 minutes.
Okay,
Oh, great.
But I'd
Okay,
rather
so
have-
keep going, Scott. I mean,
Yeah.
you're the.
Okay.
you
Yeah,
can bump me till later too, tomorrow or next week,
I mean,
next month.
floor's at 3.
Next year.
Yeah,
We're not-
I'd like to give 10 minutes between committee and floor.
Good. Yeah, so ductwork is a great thing. I will say that, when I was last doing my house 20 years ago, my last house I designed and did, I realized that, actually, the first thing you want to design is the ductwork. Before you even decide where the walls are, you want to design the ductwork. And the next thing you want to design is the pipes, and the last thing you want to design is where the electric switches go. But anyway, I just digress a little bit. All right, so I do have a couple of bills in process, that I still haven't gotten, officially back from Ledge Council yet. One is to, enhance, voluntary compliance with the energy codes. It would adopt a timeline for a residential building code. Then would also establish a task force, the purpose of which would be to assist, OPR and DFS on contractor, registry updates and identifying voluntary certifications and doing all of the vetting and finding who are the appropriate entities to do credentialing and all that sort of thing. And the second bill is on enforcement, which is probably not going to go anywhere, but I thought, given that every off-session committee that I've worked with has the majority of stakeholders have recommended that we have just got to make DFS the sole authority having jurisdiction for all building codes, including energy codes. I just thought that it would, I should have a bill that does that, something that we could maybe talk about at the same time as we talk about the other bill, just to sort of air the issues. And perhaps just makes a foundation for a future effort. The last thing I'll mention is the governor's executive order from September that he entitles it Promoting Housing Construction and Rehabilitation. The first item, first of, I don't know, 8 sections in the order was to amend the statute requirements about using 2024 RVs and CVs and allow builders to use either 2024 or 2020 RVs or CVs. The wording of the executive order was, I think, a little sloppy in that it seemed to imply that compliance with either 2024 or 2020 was optional. And actually, it's not optional because complying with energy code is required. But I don't think that would. I don't think the intention was to say that it's optional. I think it was just how the wording went. And the wording encouraged voluntary compliance with 2020 or 2024. So that wording was a little problematic. Yes.
Go ahead.
Just quickly, so Act 250 projects would have mechanical ventilation because it's the
Yeah.
2020 stretch code.
I think that is correct. Public Service has initiated a rulemaking process. Did I talk about that on the next slide?
That was my question, is where things stand
Yeah.
with the executive order,
Yeah,
if you know.
let's go on here. So this just points out that the energy codes are actually mandatory. This is the quoting chapter and verse here in statute about residential construction shall be in compliance. And the Attorney General's opinion that was requested by the legislature, speaker and And President Pro Tem observed that to the extent that the provisions of the executive order intend to announce new legal standards different from those in statute or current rule, they exceed the governing authority. However, the Public Service has started rulemaking, and Secretary of State's office has filed a hearing notice. The notice was filed at the end of last year, and the hearing will be held on February 2nd regarding implementing the governor's provisions of the governor's executive order as regards to energy codes.
So I was wondering why it's the Secretary of State. That's why.
The first step is the intergovernmental Intergovernmental Committee on Administrative will separate that, and so I think that's why that's how it starts.
I see.
I'm sorry, say, what's the safe harbor? Was that?
Well, so the first bullet here, I didn't mention yet. The Vermont Builders and Remodelers Association, Andrew can speak to it if you'd like more questions, has requested, after the governor's executive order came out, requested a safe harbor provision be added to statute. Because some builders had taken the executive order as this is the executive order, this is what the law is now.
Oh, okay.
And had already filed certificates based on the 2020 ordinance, and now they're questioning whether they're going to be sort of liable for adhering to 2024 RVs. So there was a request to add an item in statute that would basically indemnify builders who had made that choice.
Okay.
So I know there you any more in that.
You got it.
Okay.
Is that for both res and commercial or just
Yes.
commercial? For both.
Yeah, so there were, Andrew actually sent some language that he was proposing for that what that would look like, and maybe that's something that should be added to the compliance bill. I think that's something that we'll talk about when we get around to talking about the compliance bill. So let's see, I think that's it.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott, thank you. That was very helpful. And so next steps here that I heard, I know we're going to hear from Kelly. So maybe, why don't we do that? Let's turn it over to our next witness,
Sure.
and then we can quickly talk about next steps.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds like she's.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. My apologies. I am not well. So I'm gonna try to get through brief comments, and they're gonna be even briefer because Scott did such a good job summarizing the working group and the report. And but I will send my written comments and happy to follow up. If you don't mind, I'm gonna stay off camera as well because you don't need to.
That's fine. If you could just identify yourself for the record, and thanks for being flexible with the time of your testimony.
Sure. Kelly Lauder, I'm the Assistant Director of the Efficiency and Energy Resources Division in the Public Service Department. And just to dive in, this is the third year that the department has participated in, as well as provided administrative support to the Building Energy Code Working Group. It's been a very resource-intensive group to oversee. We've had 3 department staff and 1 lawyer, as Scott mentioned, as well as hiring a contractor to assist with facilitation and writing of the first 2 required reports. The department no longer had the federal funds available to hire a contractor this year, so it was fully staffed by the department. Let's see, I'm going to skip around because, like I said, Scott did such a good job. I'll just jump right to the department's summary of the department's viewpoint on the final report. Generally, we support the recommendations included in the final report that encourage code compliance without significant additional costs, which include setting up a task force to provide support to OPRs, residential contractor registry, and development of voluntary certifications, modifying the energy module currently required for certain trades and professions to focus more on the energy code requirements that would be relevant to them. And then energy efficiency utilities having some kind of role in code compliance, as they have through outreach, technical assistance, and trainings. Although in the report, we suggested that their roles be settled in what you've already heard about, the demand resource planning process, which establishes the budgets and the performance targets for the energy efficiency utilities, which we are going through right now. Any questions so far? I'm gonna keep moving forward.
So, yeah.
Okay. As I think Scott mentioned, the department does not agree with the main recommendation to designate the Division of Fire Safety as the authority having jurisdiction over the energy codes for many reasons that's discussed in the report, and particularly the financial impacts that it would have on the housing market. I also wanted to comment on something Scott said as far as how difficult or simple it would be to adopt an energy code to go into the residential building code. And because even at the 2020 version, we've done a lot of modifications, the Division of Fire Safety feels like it would be actually a pretty big lift to, go through what's in there now and modify to be consistent between the two. So just wanted to point that out.
Kelly, can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
So your comment is about DFS being concerned about doing what PSD does now, that is incorporating Vermont's energy goals into the RBs and CBs.
Oh, I think they definitely would be concerned about that. I don't want to put words in Mike DeRosa's mouth, but no, I'm saying that if we took the existing like 2020 RBs that couldn't be easily just folded into the residential construction code, because we don't follow that scheme when we develop the energy codes.
Right. Okay. Just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sorry if you also hear me putting my cough drop in my mouth so I can try to get through this.
You sound I'm sorry. Sorry to get you out of bed for this.
The department also feels, obviously, and again, Representative Campbell mentioned this, at a time when the state has significant challenges and priorities to address, like housing and education reform and healthcare and affordability, and also the department focusing on the energy efficiency DRP proceeding. We would not support continuation of this working group and did not support moving forward with the majority of the recommendations as noted in our dissenting comments in the report. That's pretty much what I had. All the building energy code working group materials, including the agenda meeting recording, and the final report are all available on our website. And I have the link in my written testimony that I'll send after this if people want that.
Okay. I'll just add that the final report is quite short. It's really only 10 pages long, plus the cover page and the table of content. So it's especially in terms of reading the comments dissenting from the recommendations that the majority approved. So
yeah. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, I forgot part of what I cut out was that we did decide to try to focus, because the first two reports were so lengthy and done by a contractor, which did a great job. It has a lot of the background information and a lot of more in-depth information about the recommendations. So we really tried especially given that the department had to do this with their own staff to only add, new information on top of those first two reports. So
Yeah. Yeah, they're a lot more comprehensive this year. So
but-
we need more reading at night.
yeah, there is an appendix in the back that kind of summarizes the first 2 years, 23 and 24, and then also has an update if work has been done to further those recommendations, and then also summarizes the this year's recommendations. So that's probably a good place to get a summary of the whole.
Great.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. Please feel better. Thanks for being flexible and for joining us. And we will be in touch.
Okay, great. Yeah, please let me know if there's any additional information I can provide. And sorry, I'm not.
Yeah, and you'll submit. That's okay. And you'll submit written comments when you're feeling
Yep.
better.
Yep,
Great.
I have them.
Okay,
Yep, I'll submit them tonight.
Get well, Kelly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. So Scott, you've got 2 bills coming.
Yep.
So I think we'll table
Yeah.
this.
Yeah,
info
I don't need an
bills.
hour, but I prefer to have some time to,
We can go out now for a minute.
not for 5 minutes.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I'd rather come back when I can do it. Yeah.
Sound
Is that
good.
okay? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I joked about tomorrow. Don't make it tomorrow.
We will not.
See you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. And Alex, we can go off live.
Okay.
And see you guys on the floor and then we're done.